Lift your head, feel the pride, we've come so far. A voice is strong, shining bright like a guiding star.
Hello and welcome to NJGPOD, the official podcast of New Journal Guide. I'm your guest host, Tony Holobyte, and today we have a special episode featuring a distinguished figure in journalism. Joining us is Leonard Colvin, who served as the chief reporter for NJG since 1987 and now dedicates his time to preserving our rich history through the NJG archives. We'll delve into his remarkable career, explore memorable stories, and discuss the significance of archiving in today's digital age.
We'll climb so high, our legacy will sing and never lie. From the roots to the crown, we've grown strong. In the streets, in the halls, we belong.
Good day, Mr. Colvin. How are you today?
I am doing fine, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. So this is part 2 of our special.
Mhm.
We had a very good conversation about the history of your career and the history of Norfolk and Hampton Roads. Very insightful. Now we want to transition into the archiving that you do with New Journal Guide.
Uh-huh.
So what inspired you to take the role of managing the NJG archives after retiring from reporting?
Oh, I was doing that before I retired. One of Miss Andrews' administrative assistants started it. At one point, Miss Andrews has the, she knows how to allow us to experiment in doing things for the paper that might be of interest to the reader. So the assistant who had access to the archives went in and was fascinated by all of the historical stuff that she saw, and she would copy, type, this sort of abbreviate stories about social gatherings in the city or some particular event, and Ms. Andrews included it in the paper. And then once the assistant left, I sort of took it up because I thought it was rather fascinating. So that's how the ball got rolling. No, that was about 7 years ago.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you decide which archival piece to feature in a paper?
Well, it starts also with the timeline. The Guide has always been a weekly newspaper, 7 days. So like this week, I am doing February 20th to the 27th. So I put in the search engine of the archives February 27th. Well, sometimes I sort of break it up. I may say February 20th, I may say February 21st, and include February 27th. And various editions of the paper that were printed on that date will pop up, and I will look at them to see if there's anything of interest. This year I really wanted to include the first story about Negro History Week, which I found. I think it started in 1926, and I found that first little short story about Negro History Week. Then
Negro history.
Negro History Week. We moved on to Negro History Month. And
Are you saying Black History Week or Black History Month? Or?
No, it was called Negro History. It was called Negro History. Remember, in 1926, Black people were not referred to as Black unless they were in South Africa or, it was Negro History Week.
Okay.
And it came out of Black people celebrating bits and pieces of Black history relative to Abraham Lincoln's birthday and other events. Black people had created a whole lot of entries into our historical book up until that point in 1926.
So you're saying that Negro History Week was based around Lincoln's birthday?
Yeah, and because of 1926, that's how we were referred to, Negroes or colored.
And that's February?
It was in February.
Oh, interesting.
The whole week. It was in February.
Okay, so you search the archives, you put in the day, and then multiple years pop up, and that's how you decide.
Yeah, I go by month. I got to do it weekly. I do it monthly. Like this week, I think I've already sent for editing the February 20th to February 27th edition. So anything within that week, I try to keep it within that week period. I try to look up and find interesting.
Could you share like a really fascinating discovery you've made while working with the NJG archives? Like you've searched this and then like, wow, like what's the discovery that you just never knew existed? Well,
well, anytime you go on that archive and you look back, you will unearth interesting information about African American history, like the 688th unit of mail sorters. I discovered that in the archives a long time ago. There was so much mail that was coming to U.S. soldiers during World War II that it was stockpiled in places in England like that. And they needed somebody to sort all that stuff. So they created the 688th mail sorting unit. I may be messing up the official title of it, but I discovered that. In fact, there's a documentary. There's a movie out on it now.
Yeah, Tyler Perry did this, I think.
Yeah, Tyler Perry did. Or the fascinating world of Thurgood Marshall. And in fact, reading his biography recently, I sort of correlated it with some of the stories I found in the Journal and Guide, how he was going all over the country fighting in courts against Jim Crow judges and Jim Crow cities who were railroading African American men, especially, in trumped up charges. Like the Scottsboro Boys. We were one of I think maybe one or two black newspapers allowed to cover that story. And in reading some of the articles about how the white judges down there were trying to railroad, and I guess it's because the incident occurred while these boys were traveling on a railroad car and allegedly raped some white girl. Maybe that's how that term was coined. But some of the fascinating stories about the Scottsboro Boys, or some of the interesting stories about how during D-Day, it was historians were hard pressed to discover if African American soldiers were on the Normandy beaches or Sword Beach or whatever, and looking at some of the articles written by Journal and Guide reporters that was accompanying or embedded at times with Allied forces going into France to push the Germans back and eventually defeat them. Black people were there in handling balloons that were set up in the air to keep German airplanes from flying down and attacking them, or recovering bodies, or driving trucks. Also, about the Red Ball Express. There's movies out that the Red Ball Express was a group of white truck drivers, but lo and behold, they were black.
Wow.
And about locally about how Black people trying to move into certain sections of Norfolk that resisted integration, how they were firebombed, like in Brambleton.
Wow.
There are wheelbarrows, many stories that will fascinate, will blow your mind, that will have relevance to what is going on now. You know.
In your opinion, how can historical archives like NJG inform and educate, the current generations?
Well, I always suggest to anybody who is a journalist, if you're going to write about anything relative to politics, history, sociology, always throw a little history into it. That'll give it a little perspective and to let people know that this is not new. For instance, Project 2025. People think that's something new that the Republican Party or, yes, the Heritage Foundation created last year in preparation for the 2024 election. But if you look at Project 2025, whatever it is, there are elements of that plan that go back as far as the time after the Brown decision. White conservative racists utilizing the government to dismantle efforts to desegregate the public schools, efforts to destroy the public schools, because a lot of racist white people said, if we're going to mongrelize the public schools, they're no longer useful to us. I don't want my daughter sitting next to, any black boy. Dismantling the federal government, because the Department of Justice, the Department of Education, the EPA, and all of those agencies created policies that gave rights and protections to people who wanted to breathe fresh air, who wanted to have equal access if they have disabilities, if they wanted civil rights and voting rights protection. As you can see, all of those vital federal agencies are being dismantled as we speak. And that project is nothing new. It has been in place. It has been part of the Republican playbook since, I say again, the Brown decision. That was the most significant. Federal ruling of a generation, and the most significant federal judicial ruling since Reconstruction. There were a number of legislative and legal moves to advance Black progress and liberation during Reconstruction. And that Brown decision almost broke the back of Jim Crow, although even after 1954, white people resisted implementing the Brown decision.
For those who don't know, what exactly is the Brown decision?
The Brown decision was overturned Plessy versus Ferguson in 1886, when the Supreme Court said that African American, in total, it just said that they're going to separate the public and educational facilities racially in this country. There will be colored bathrooms and white bathrooms. There'll be white schools and there'll be Black schools. But there was that interesting little part. They will be separate but equal. But that never ever happened. Those Black schools, those Black bathrooms, those Black bathing facilities, they were separate from white people, but they were never ever equal.
Interesting.
Because they were never maintained the same way. They were never given equal funding. Never. Ever. So the Supreme Court declared all of that unconstitutional, thanks to the work of Thurgood Marshall and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. They were the ones that filed all those suits even before the Brown decision, to stop abuses of bus companies like Greyhound from relegating Black people to the back of the bus or having to give up their seat. or in case of Norfolk, Eileen Black versus the Norfolk City School Board have equal pay for black teachers on the same level as white teachers. It's one interesting ingredient. It's one interesting point is that during the great massive resistance when white people, especially in Virginia and other parts of the South, said to put their foot down, said we're going to resist this whole thing about Brown versus the Board of Education. We're going to resist it legally, socially, and politically, and they didn't. And they discovered that black teachers were better educated. Like at Booker T. Washington High School, most of them had higher levels of education and the degree accreditation than any of the white teachers in the Norfolk Public Schools. Because since black people could not attend TWIs or traditionally white institutions, the states, and Virginia and other southern states, paid the tuition of black graduate students to attend any school they wanted to outside of Virginia and in the North. So many black educators, they went to Yale, NYU, Michigan, Case Reserve, UCLA. They had grand educations.
That's interesting.
But were relegated to the segregated Booker T. Washington High School facilities, which were totally inferior.
And this is all in the archives. This is from the archives,
and
or
in the history books too.
Or are you speaking on, what you've learned over the years?
But there's one thing I have to give myself credit for is being able to understand that while you were working for the Guide, Mr. Colvin, you were also getting an education in African American history, sociology, politics, economics, whatever. Because until I got to Norfolk, I didn't know anything about the welfare system or public housing or the dynamics of urban black living. It's fascinating.
That's interesting. Well, let's shift back for a second. So what advice would you give aspiring journalists today?
Read, educate yourself about everything. That's why I appreciate when I'm attending college. I was a liberal arts butterfly. I did literature, European literature, history, economics, all of that. You can't. In my case, I could not stick to one subject. I would write 4 stories, and each one of them would be on a different subject: education, someone filing a civil rights suit, or a woman who had turned 104 years old and then digging up his or her interesting life. And then there might be one on childhood development, something like that, or economics. Read and always be abreast of variations in any story that they assign you.
So you're saying, like, can I have an understanding for the topic that you're covering?
Yeah, it could be anything. Economics. So let's say, let's just talk about, a good example is the upcoming effort to recruit black contractors to pursue contracts for the upcoming redevelopment of St. Paul's project. And I advise you to go look at that, do some history on that. And the economics of that is that African Americans, because they were ill prepared or left out of the game, so to speak, were not able to generate the economic, the capital or the access even to develop businesses or strategies to bid effectively for those contracts in the past. Now the city of Norfolk is trying to make up for that That's the economics of that.
So you're saying just having an understanding of how this
How economics
works,
works,
then
how the state works,
it helps you to do better
yeah,
reporting.
to do better reporting. If you're looking at how contracting works, or the procurement system, or how Black people gain access to contracts to provide services to the city of Norfolk or Virginia Beach or Suffolk or whatever, you got to understand how that works.
You're listening to NJGPOD, the official podcast for the New Journaling Guide, where we bring you stories that matter, past and present. We'll be right back in a moment, but first, a word from our sponsor.
Bound by truth, it's who we are. New journal and guide, we've raised the bar. In the ink, in the print, our truth is found.
For over a century, the New Journal and Guide has been the heartbeat of Hampton Roads, delivering news that shapes our community and resonates beyond. As the South's oldest Black-owned newspaper, we chronicle stories that matter, from local triumphs to national milestones, celebrating the rich tapestry of the African-American experience, history, present, and future in one subscription. Stay informed and empowered. Subscribe today at thenewjournalandguide.com.
Welcome back to NJGPOD, the official podcast of New Journaling Guide. We're going to jump right back in with Leonard Colvin, Chief Reporter Emeritus, who's talking about his career and how he works with the New Journaling Guide archives.
Every voice, every name is our song. With courage.
And you can tell that you've been doing journalism for some time. You're full of information. What do you envision, the future of Black journalism and the evolving landscape? I mean, because we're now into social media, a lot of people doing videos or reporting is getting more biased, and some reporters, it seem as if they're not really investigating.
No,
but
they're going to Wikipedia or trying to sift through the lies of political politicians and politics.
But it's still a professional side of journalism.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's Black journalism, because of social media, because of all the tools you have to research nowadays, and all of the ways that you can broadcast and spread what you're writing if you're trying to educate and enlighten and keep people woke.
Did you say broad trash? You said broadcast or broad trash?
Broadcast, spread, however.
Okay. I thought. Okay.
Spread. The Black press should be on steroids right now, educating people, putting people who are fighting against their rights and endangering the lives of their children and their families on blast now through all these blogs on Facebook and X and all of those vehicles now they're available to them. But unfortunately, if you look at X, if you look at some parts of Facebook, at Instagram, you see absolutely nothing but junk. Negroes dancing, fighting, or whatever, or clowning. People say, the question, somebody always asks that question: how can we educate Black people about Black history? How can we educate Black people about their rights and all of that? I said the platform's already there, but they're being misused with all this junk that is being produced every day.
So you're seeing a decline in Black journalism.
I am seeing an uplift in the technology and the ability to spread information, but what is being created is being marginalized, and the ability of and willingness of people to absorb it, to go read it every day is on the decline. As a geezer myself, I get up listening to the radio, NPR every morning, and I sift through YouTube the bits and pieces of interest and validity. I want to absorb. I read the newspapers online. I read magazines online. I'm always constantly, that's a thing for me, I guess, generationally, for me to do is to go and sift and find all this information. Who does that nowadays? What 24-year-old does that nowadays? Unless they're in college, being forced to do it.
Well, let's shift back for a second. So what advice would you give aspiring journalists today?
What advice would I give them first of all, is to, as I said, explore, expand your mind on various subjects, and be aggressive. And be an advocate, I would say. Yes, man, that's what you're looking for. Be an advocate. I thought I was an advocate because I was writing about stuff and in a way that nobody else was doing. When I was telling stories about people filing suits for losing their land, I tried to put a little history in there, and to explain all the racial elements as possible, to advocate for that person who would probably take that story to a court of law and give it to their lawyer, and perhaps even the prosecution, maybe even the judge would understand it even better. Is to educate and enlighten people. That's what you're writing for, Not just the who, what, when, and where, but is there a historical factor to all of this,
If I want to be a professional journalist, how do I straddle this line between? It seems like a thin line the way I'm hearing you speak between, or three lines here between bias, propaganda, and true journalism.
Just write the truth. Write the truth. If you have a situation where the police department said that when an officer stopped a black man and he was verbally abusive, and when he got out the car, he started shoving him around and he was resisting, and that is in the newspaper, and then you talk to the person who was abused, who was arrested, and he says a different thing. And oh, by the way, there's a dash cam that said that he was humble as pie. What do you do with all that information? You tell the truth. You don't use propaganda, as you say. You don't try to defend the police. You write exactly what happened. And, oh, by the way, there's a historical precedent for this. A large percentage of African Americans who are stopped by police are usually accused of being resistant and abusive. Throw that in there, too. The whole thing about journalism is about being unbiased, is speaking to the truth, putting it all in facts, whether folks want to believe it or not, so they won't be able to question it,
So let's look back and at some of the stories you've written. Which story are you most proud of?
Oh, I can't single it out. I've written so many. I cannot.
There has to be one that's kind of like, oh, I really remember that, dear to my heart, or
no. I don't think any story that I wrote that I would say one interesting story. I'm not singling that one out, but it goes back to your point of a story that made a difference was about the Hampton YMCA. The Hampton YMCA was the first independent black YMCA, Young Men's Christian Association outlet unit in the South, right here in Norfolk. Started over on Wood Street, where that huge mail distribution center is. It moved over to Charlotte Street, right next to Tidewater Drive. And when the St. Paul's project was in its final stages, or even before the project was in its final stages, it was decided that the Hampton YMCA had to go. Okay. And the city was going to pay it, let's say $999,000, and you can take this money, you can find someplace to go, and you can move all your operation, all that good stuff. Bull. Me, with the help of a real estate lawyer who specialized in cities coming through and taking public and private land owned by Black institutions and people and giving them a pittance for their property, and just telling them that here's the $5 and move on, wrote a story indicating that once upon a time, the city had valued that land and that building for 3 times as much as was noted in the newspaper when the city 5 or 6 years ago decided, oh, it's time for the Hampton YMCA to go. So based on that story, the YMCA got the money that it deserved, got the full value of what the city had once valued, that assessed for that building. And the city had to pay for their moving expenses and had to help some of the people who were being dislodged, who were working there. He had to assist them and a lot of other things. But that's one of many stories that I feel really feel good about, because, you had this historic organization, this historic institution that was just being pushed aside. And the people who were trying to save it were told, you're only going to get a penance for what it's valued. And if you can't do anything better after we give you that little money, oh well.
So it's like a $3 million story.
It was the $3 million. Perhaps now will help the Hampton YMCA move forward and retain its position in the urban core of Norfolk. Yes, out of that deal, the city gave the Hampton YMCA free land to build another facility. They also gave the people who were trying to save the Hampton YMCA monies to design a new facility and ways to, now they got to raise money to do it. That's the thing, So yes.
Wow.
Once that hit the press, and once the record was corrected, then the city had nothing else to do but to do right by the Hampton YMCA and the Black community.
I can only imagine, one being in this work for years, and seeing so much. How has your work at NJG in reporting shaped your personal growth and understanding of the community?
Oh, giving me a PhD in Black history, giving me a better understanding of how Black people have grown, can grow, can help themselves, and how sometimes we trip ourselves up, through infighting created by ourselves and by other people who don't ever want to see us united. By realizing that African Americans can own something other than dysfunction if we aspire to do so and unite. We must own something other than dysfunction. Actually, in retirement, I have discovered, well, I've always knew that it gave me more confidence in being a Black man, that, we're not all fools, we're not all, as I said, we can wield more than just control more and own something more than dysfunction. But as a Black man, it's given me a hell of a lot more confidence in what Black people can do as a whole and individually. My access to utilizing and spreading information. Also, after leaving the Guide, which I haven't, I'm still doing some work there, utilizing it in helping my neighborhood. I'm a member of the board of directors of my civic league. And you would be surprised that a lot of civic leagues, especially in the Black community, do not know how to engage city government, do not know how to go out and talk to people who allegedly represent them on school board and city council and the planning commission. Okay. And so that has given me a great insight into helping my civic league and helping my community gain access to resources and ideas they need to make Lindenwood a better place to live. It's one of the oldest middle-income Black neighborhoods in this city. Probably one of the first to be invested. That white monies downtown was invested to develop. You know, before they talk about the LAJ Gardens, and they talk about the other upper income or elite Black neighborhoods, but Lindenwood was amongst those elite Black neighborhoods. And of course, once all the old homeowners left, a lot of renters came in, and the pride and the structure of the neighborhood went down. But by the time I got here, it was on the movement back upwards. I think that's why my realtor probably planned and put me here, convinced me to buy this old Victorian house. It gave me a lot, and people would ask me, well, how do you know these people? Well, how do you know how to write information that people will look at and won't throw in the garbage? Well, because I know these people. I know how they click. I know how their mind works. I'm trying to get them to understand that you just can't come to the Lindenwood Civic League during election year. You have to sort of serve us year round, respond to our requests and our wishes for assistance year round.
So when you said they put white money in, are you speaking like city money for the taxes, or?
No, these were private developers. That's in the Journal and Guide too. When I bought my house, I did research on my house. Okay. And it was a group of white businessmen, developers through a bank, who bought this land, especially right here at 97 in the 800 block of Rugby Street in Lindenwood. And they put money into the design and the development of these houses along this thoroughfare, this 800, 900 block of Rugby Street. Okay. And all of these houses are just like in Ghent. They all look like they're old Victorians. They may look different in architectural design, but they're all the same size. Still beautiful structures. They also hired a Black contractor to build each one of these homes. He died in 1954, Mr. Thornton. They also hired a Black contractor to build these homes. So that's a fascinating piece of history. There's also a lot of history over in it was a section of Norfolk called Boulevard Terrace. If you are going northward on Virginia Beach Boulevard and you pass Park Avenue, like you're going to the old Military Circle Highway, if you look to your right, you can see semblances of old, big mansions. Most of them are apartment buildings now, but that was called Boulevard Terrace. And that was called the Hollywood or the Beverly Hills of the South at one time, because all of the Black movers and shakers of that time lived in those homes.
And this is located where?
Off of Virginia Beach Boulevard. I've shown you that area several times when we were driving, going someplace. Yes. It's right next to Norfolk State. It's right behind Spartan. Well, now I would say not Spartan Village, but it sits between Corporal Avenue and Virginia Beach Boulevard. If you are going to the guide building from downtown Norfolk and you pass Park Avenue, you go up 2 blocks and you look to your right, you will see these 2-story homes. Some of them are they're redeveloping them now, but you can see they look like old mansions or big apartment buildings or whatever. But that was called Boulevard Terrace.
Very interesting.
And very interesting. These houses are sitting on a very small plot of land before, but these houses used to sit on huge tracts of land that had tennis courts and all the other amenities that wealthy and elite white people had in their communities. And that community sort of went to the wayside once Black people had access to go to other communities during the early stages of the segregation or integration.
So, and I'm glad you brought up the topic of integration and segregation, because you have a knowledge of the archives. What do you see? How do you see the progress in integration? Do you see it? Because to me, it seems like there's some areas that are still segregated. What do you see in contrast to the archives on the topics of integration and separation?
Well, educationally, massive resistance still exists. Well, there are examples where integration is public schools is working quite well. In my small little town back in Arkansas, I look at the websites of some of the schools there, and I see where there's an equalization of the system, whether those Black students are getting all the resources they need, even sitting in those classrooms is a question. But to the large degree, the idea of the segregation in the United States is based on where you can live. And a lot of Black people are priced back into the Black neighborhoods. We live what we can afford. If we can afford to live in a high-end area, we'll do that. So therefore, we'll have access to better schools and communities who are better connected to their schools. If not, if we're in the middle where we can live in an area that is relatively middle income, and the schools are pretty good because the family structures of most of the families are stable and connected to the schools, integration will work. But for a large portion of African American children who are living in urban poverty, whose family life and family structure is questionable at best and not connected to the public schools, then integration is not working for those children. And Norfolk is a good case in point because it's public education because there's a connection between the home and that institution called the school. And if one of those partners, namely the family, is dysfunctional, has no connection with the public schools, don't know how to connect with the public schools, that is the problem. If there is no educational nurturing in the home or reinforcement what the public schools teaches that child during the course of the day, if a child sits and listens to the 3 R's all day, functions in the 3 R's all the day, and then goes home to dysfunction and being placed before a television or some other device, and there is no reinforcement, then it does not work for poor Black children. It does not work for us. It's not, because our families are, especially in the lower incomes and increasingly so in the middle income, they're dysfunctional. Parenting is a trade, is a profession that if you were not trained well to do it, you cannot do it. It's a skill. And a lot of lower and middle income, and in cases we already know, upper income families, if you are not trained well in parenting or have some role modeling that you know to apply to be a good parent, you will fail as a parent. And therefore, any effort you have in getting your child supported and serviced by a public school will fail.
That's a very
Too often,
interesting.
too often, Black people will relegate the responsibility of educating their children and moralizing their children to the schools. The teachers are there to teach the 3 R's. But in cases, many cases in the schools in the urban core, teachers are security guards, their parents. There are many things, you know. They're even supplying the basic material needs for a lot of kids. Ask me why I don't know.
That's
But the end of and so far as economic, that's education. When you're talking about economic integration, that hasn't been fully realized by Black people too, because white people, when they said, okay, we agree to integration, but you're only going to get a tiny slice of our pie, and the rest of it you will have to fight for. A large segment of Black people still have not harnessed that ability. You know, we may have a large number of Black people doing quite well in all areas, especially entertainment and in sports. But there is still that large group of people below that are not moving at all, as in the case of the white communities. You know, they're being screwed over by the likes of the Republican Party, who are not giving them the benefit of the economic benefits of this country, you know, including not even elevating the minimum wage or providing some form of health care and child care, which is, you know, can be supportive benefits that will help these people elevate themselves.
So are you saying in a sense that integration and segregation is not working as well for some in class? No. So it's like they added a class state to it, or is it working and now it's being introduced by class?
It was all about class and race in the first place. But the whole thing about, as I mentioned yesterday, about when African Americans get a foothold of progress, when we start moving forward, it's always sabotaged. And therefore, there are some of us who will get to that portal to success and money and power. And there are others there's those who are in the superposition to get to that portal. Those below, some of them will get through, but there are many below, you know, in the lower echelons of our economic structure who are still burdened by poverty, who still are, you know, struggling, you know, by fault of their own and fault of the system.
So by and large, you know, taking the contrast of the archives, by and large, the, you know, integration is working, but there's a lot of different.
Integration has worked. Integration has worked. By and large, we're still not. You know, there's a lot of things that have been done by the courts and by the economic system and by the government that has helped Black people move forward, get away from the severe vestiges of Jim Crow.
But according to what you were saying, some of these issues is based on parenting and culture.
Remember when I was talking about yesterday, for every 2 steps forward, they push us back 3? This is what's happening right now with the Bush administration. They are challenging and trying to dismantle and trying to dissuade
the Bush administration.
The Reagan administration. Yes.
You're going back to, this is the archives.
No, I'm looking at what's happening now. Remember, The archives is what's happened to the past and happened in the past.
I'm just
But
trying to clarify.
I'm always trying to keep those. They're like parallel uses, or they're like parallel universes, the past and the present, and they are still reflecting one another. As I said, Black people in the past during Reconstruction, or after the Brown decision, when the Declaration against segregation was passed, made advancements, but at the same time they kept getting pushed back. We see that right now happening.
That is interesting. Well,
With what the Trump administration is trying to do, which is trying to dismantle the machine that kept that progress flowing, and that is the federal government. That is state government ran by Democrats, yes. We see that challenge to progress. You hear people saying, I don't know what's going on, or what is Trump doing and all of that. He is dismantling all of that, defunding, whether he's trying to find $2 trillion to cut, looking at all of the support programs that fed, housed, and clothed people, to cut all of that, including workers, middle class, and upper class white people and white and Black people who work for the federal government, get rid of them to the tune of $2 trillion, and then we can give trillionaires and millionaires a tax cut, and they can sit on that money for the next 10 years and not use it at all to benefit their workers or the poor people in this country. That's what he did in 2017.
that's very interesting. But we're running out of time, and so we're going to have to pick this up again.
Okay, this will go on forever because it's a never. I don't even think we achieve what we want. You can go through that as you can. You look at it and see what you got. But
it's more so. It was about the archives, but I think what's happening is that we open up a can that really expanded throughout your career. So here you are years later, still reporting some of the same things happening in the archives. I think we just opened up a very interesting can. I think we need to continue this conversation.
Because as I said, the past and whether it be the Matrix, the past and the present are sort of paralleling one another. We see instances where Black people's ability to move forward and progress are being challenged as we made great strides. We thought we were rolling, but here we are, bam, 2025. But we were warned and alerted to the fact of what the Republican Party was up to. FA and FO. You know what that is nowadays, don't you?
No, I don't.
You don't know. It's you f***ed around and you found out. Okay.
Well, that concludes our show. We'll come back to more of this topic another time. So this is Leonard Colvin,
Chief Reporter Emeritus.
Chief Reporter Emeritus, giving us his history and some insightful stories about his career with Black journalism. And we'll bring you back, Mr. Colvin. Thank you so much. It's been great.
Every step, every breath, we give it all. In unity, we answer the call. Raise the banner high, let it touch the sky. With every story told,